When Gen Zs, I mean, your group of your generation of young people meet and you talk about politics, is there any point where you believe African politics or Ghana politics or the situation we have here would ever change whilst you are still in this country? Do you ever consider the politics improving the life of the people in this country? I'm talking about your generation.
Okay. Our generation, I would say, is one of the generations that is the most disappointed when it comes to leadership and also politics in Africa. And Cyrus, why am I saying this? If you look at the African leadership and our politics in Africa and also the trend, and then you compare it elsewhere, we're able to compare, my generation is able to compare this easily because of communication and access to information. And we're able to do this easily. And I will repeat myself and say that my generation is the most disappointed. And it looks like the trend we see here in Ghana or within our neighbors is the trend in Africa. Sometimes I'm tempted to call it the African way, and you dare to do it differently as a politician within Africa. Look at the corruption and nepotism we find around. People awarding contracts on close tendering. African politics, when it comes to African politics, contracts are never awarded with open tendering. And then when you look at it cut across, so it makes me, or even I'm sure I'm not only I'm not the only person thinking this way.
But it's the same generational people, like I'm talking about your generation people, that we see on TV and other social media platforms that are strongly in support following these political party flag bearers and chanting songs and their names when they go on campaigns. We see your generation people. They are the ones who are running around with the motorbikes and all of that in support of the same people.
Okay. I think I would disagree with you a little. Some of us are included, as we're saying, but if I actually look at it very well, the majority of us are not within the Gen Z generation. And also, even if they are, I would also partly blame it on the system that you have actually created for ourselves. People go into politics and then we don't even have an accountability system. And we see them. So most of the Gen Z that we find in this situation are people who are motivated not only by interest or not only by the character traits of these people, but other things like the system is pushing them or they are being motivated by money. And besides, Cyrus, initially I said you are disappointed. And it's almost, this trend you are seeing is almost becoming the African way. And then no politician, I don't think no politician within our territory would decide to do it wrongly. Why am I saying this? If you actually look at the people within Africa who have done this differently, who have in their governments have decided to do away with nepotism, to do away with corruption, to do away with state asset looting, we all seen how it ends with these people. So it looked like the nepotism, contracts to my people, job for the boys. If you don't do it that way, you will not get anybody to support you. Let's look at a typical example of an African leader like Thomas Sankara. And we all know how Thomas Sankara started his way.
But that will be uncommon to your generational people.
It will be uncommon to my generation, but aside him or within our generation, there are only few. And even if should I even say there are only few, our generation has not really seen anyone who is willing to also do it the different way, rather than the same way of job for the boys, the same way of...
If you are expecting somebody else to do it for you, why don't your generation, the Gen Zs, why don't we see Gen Zs make their way into politics?
The Gen Zs are coming, and they are not coming slowly.
I know, I see them coming in technology, I see them coming in sports, I see them coming in almost every aspect of the world, okay, in entertainment. Okay. But when it comes to politics, it looks as if the Gen Zs are relaxed.
Sorry, the Gen Zs are not relaxed. And then we all know how politics in Africa has become. You need some amount of resources and also a level of influence. And then...
But some of your Gen Zs are popular than all these old heads.
That's true. I actually interact with a lot of my peers. And I know the sense of urgency with them when it comes to doing something about African politics. So... Fine. From a different perspective, you may think that the Gen Zs are not pulling out when it comes to involving themselves in politics. The few that you find them are on the street supporting. But it doesn't end there. Just like I said earlier, we know how politics is done in Africa and what you need.
It's capital intensive.
It's capital intensive and also regards other things. You may have the influence. but you also need other things. And besides, too, it still doesn't end there because you've seen them in the
Listen,
lives of.
I'm not cutting you short. I'm not
Right.
cutting you short. But what I'm trying to say is, I will be so excited to see a young person, a very young person like 21, who is running for member of parliament, or 24, who is trying to be a member of parliament and is able to rally the youth around his age, around him, and say, push me up there. Let us, the Gen Zs, create, another platform for ourselves. Isn't this something the Gen Zs can be thinking about at this point, when you see all the disappointments, the old heads?
Okay. So, Cyrus, this is something that the Gen Z could be thinking about, and indeed, most of them are actually thinking about this thing. And there are a few examples around you, but I just want to just mention any name over here. But I can assure you that the Gen Zs are not relaxed over this. And like I've already told you before, that I see the Gen Z as the generation that this world would most benefit from, because they have a good blend of the past and then the present. They even have the more of the present, and they also because of access to information, they see the good things outside, and then so if you have them as you are proposing, and as it's happening, you're not the only person in this thinking that is going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing.
I think it's going to be a solid thing for this country.
Yeah.
We want to, because you hold a huge percentage of our population. And if you are a big chunk of our population, then you should also matter in parliament. Exactly. You should have somebody in parliament who is speaking on your behalf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in terms of even business, we want to see Gen Zs push. When you look at the Western countries, you see a lot of young people taking up spaces, starting entrepreneurships and making businesses, getting big contracts here and there, inventing stuff.
Okay.
When are we going to see that, explosion in Africa, in Ghana, particularly in Ghana, where we will see Ghanaians who own multi-million companies, but they are in Gen Z group?
Okay. So, Cyrus, all these ambitions, I would say they are distinctive characteristics of the Gen Z. But one thing that I've also identified with our generation is that, in the first place, because of access to information, most of us, majority of us who have this business or who are intellectual when it comes to these things, unfortunately, had this fake it until you make it mindset. So sometimes when I hear some of these business ideas around, and it's so juicy, as it's a done deal, and it's end up failing, and you go back to think about it, you go back to think about the most successful ones, and you begin to ask yourself, was this idea ever pitched anywhere? Did this idea ever receive accolades? And you find out that most of these things were done secretly and they exploded. So because of access to information and other things, one of our problems that we may not realize what I'm talking about early enough is the idea of overly sugarcoating our ideas before
it hits.
And then you can also blame us for that, because it's hard to get your hands.
It's a long process.
It's a long process. Even when I'm born, a friend of mine told me that if I'm born here in Africa, you are about you have deficits. You need to climb. You actually have deficits.
You are born in a pit.
You are born in a pit. So you need to climb. So fine, we find ourselves in that situation. We try to overly sugarcoat our ideas before it's come, but sometimes we cannot be blamed too much.
But I will still encourage you guys to get out there and start businesses.
We are not.
Do you know what Elon Musk said about university education to Gen Zs?
No, I've not.
Elon Musk once said he thinks university education, if it's not for a professional course like medicine or accounting or something like that, he's saying he thinks it's irrelevant. He says you should rather invest that time into starting a business, an idea that you have, because you would have grown and matured and had experience doing that for 4 years than wasted it in university. And a lot of schools have come up now against him. But if you look at the West, people who are making millions of dollars, these are guys who have dropped out. These are guys who have started businesses which are, not the regular online businesses, even social media, programs and stuff like that. And it happens to become a multi-million to a billion business.
Sorry.
When are we going to see the youth, the people in your category, in Ghana specifically, in Nigeria, in South Africa? When are we going to see you guys say, listen, we want to go to school, but we are not just going to go to school for 4 years and sit in the classroom. Whilst we go to school, maybe we are going to start business. We are going to come together as a team and work together with friends, colleagues, and put monies, resources together, ideas, start something. We want to see more from the Gen Zs in Ghana because you have so much to contribute. And yet, when you meet your guys, when I meet them in for instance, the university close to us, the conversations we have, they are not thinking this direction. They are thinking about computer games. They are talking about sports betting. They are talking about something which doesn't directly bring money. What is happening?
Cyrus, some of these things you're saying, I would agree with you. But for now, what I want to draw your attention over is that things has really changed. Things have really changed. I remember about 10, 15 years back, you walk around within your area, and then among the things you see around are sports, video games, centers, and other things. But right now, when you take a walk within your area, how many of them can we count right now?
They are non-existent.
They are not existent. So that should tell you that there's a shift. But there's a problem, and the problem is the rate at which this shift is happening with us. And I don't know, factors come to play when it comes to these things, especially the education aspect you talk about.
And the Elon Musk thing. What do you think about it?
The Elon Musk thing, I disagree with him.
Okay.
In a sense that education gives us a wide range of things.
Now, what he's trying to say is once you get secondary school education, you are more or less okay to be able to, run a bank account. You have your confidence built at this point. You're able to read and write, your left and right. And so you can transition from there into a businessman. Okay. It's different from when you drop out before secondary school.
Okay. That would be a good proposal. But for you to rubbish the idea of maybe post-secondary, no, maybe Elon Musk is very influential. And I wish you could actually channel this conversation into a more comprehensive structuring, especially in our part of the world. Trust me, when you go to US, most of their high class offices that require high intelligence and other things, most of the guys you see there, the actual training don't happen in the classroom. The actual training happen when they get to the unit. So that the intelligence bureau and other places, most of the actual training that gives them the distinctive power that we see here in Ghana, they're able to actually fire missiles with precision. It happens within the unit, or maybe perhaps a military school. But most of these guys also pass through the conventional education system. So such a conversation will be actually channeled into a more restructuring of our education system. And we need this the most in Africa. In Africa is worse. But I think over there they're able to actually do something about it. But what I want to assure you is that the Gen Zs are not actually sleeping. I will actually give myself an example. We are not sleeping. When I was in final year, I made an observation, and actually realized that our people who goes into vocational training, especially the ones that are more of one-man business, they don't really get anything. Most of them are even end up doing work for the owners of the business rather than going to learn the actual thing they went in there to learn. And then a lot of them, especially the females, were also most often subject to abuses. These observations are made within several communities. And when I came back to Accra too, even though where I was staying, because I was staying at Achimota, it wasn't that frequent there. But there was this sense of that is actually something that's scattered across. I thought on what to do about this. I developed a policy brief. I actually kept it as a policy brief. And then I actually submitted. I didn't even keep it. I submitted it to one member of parliament who usually speaks for the youth, but maybe I wouldn't want to mention his name. If you don't mind, you can even mention it.
No, just forget about it.
Yeah. So these are the things that I'm not the only person. I also find my friends, especially close people that I used to talk with, also do in different angles. So we are not sleeping.
You are not sleeping.
But just like you said, our education system and the good politics, I think, would really give us the boost.
I think you guys it's just about time. The situation is so ripe to see Gen Zs want to get into politics.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm telling you.
Right. That's true.
If you're a Gen Z, you are watching this program, listen, you are not too young. I'm saying this to you directly, if you are watching me, you are not too young. I'm advising you, if you are between 18 to 24 and you are still figuring out what to do, but you are so articulate, you know how to get planning done and get things done, perhaps you should look at politics, so that all the problems you keep mentioning, which has perpetually no solutions in this part of the world, you might bring the solutions, because your numbers are so huge. Your numbers are so big in this country. Yet representation, in parliament. It's about time you guys get there. And I'm encouraging you guys to look into that.